And we're back with our guest, Ann Brown. Ann is a holistic healing practitioner and registered nurse with a focus on healing touch, Reiki, and aromatherapy. She's also a registered nurse with a specialization in maternal child health from Georgetown University, a certified intuitive, and has an extensive background in yoga and movement therapy. So, Ann, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
We're thrilled to have you. And our viewers might be a little confused and going, oh, okay, what does all that have to do with autism? But you have a particular specialization in autism. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about what that is?
Yes, I feel like a holistic approach is so very important for all of our health and wellness. And autism and ADD, Asperger's, everything under the spectrum umbrella can very much be benefited by a holistic approach. For instance, nutrition being first, whole nutrition, whole foods, elimination of chemicals as much as possible, organic as much as possible. Many of these children and young adults are very, very sensitive. So the food, obviously, to have pure food, and to even do anything perfectly as a perfect diet or anything like that, of course there is no such thing for any of us, especially children. But to really try to focus on as holistic a diet as possible is really very important. My grandmother always said that food is our medicine, and I do really believe that to be true.
And when you say, I was just going to say, when you say holistic, and you started to say nutrition, but there are more parts to it, and I think I cut you off. So talk about what other, besides nutrition, what other elements you consider holistic medicine.
Energy medicine is also very important. The energetic place that children find themselves in, how they are feeling, really to look at that whole climate of, are they feeling anxious? Are they feeling confused? And many times, particularly with children that are nonverbal, these things can be very difficult to determine. And one of the things that I work with families and mothers in particular is really to develop your own intuitive sense as to really what is going on with your child. And that takes time. And as children grow, as we all change, they will also change. So as they go through their growth, there will be different things that they will need. And intuition is a very, very important skill. You look at, like, for instance, behaviors. A child's having a very challenging behavior. And it's like, well, what do we do? What is going on? Well, what is the root of it? And to understand and to work to understand that. And these are not easy things to do. But many times the families and people close to the children begin to learn this and can share this with other people in their community.
So give us an example of that, Ann. So a family comes to you and they have a child who seems to have, let's face it, a lot of our kiddos have a fair amount of anxiety.
Yes.
And it's a thing that really, kicks our keister because we don't always know what to do for them. So family comes to you and says, here's my child's on the spectrum, anxiety. What might you work on with the family to change that?
Well, the very first thing that I would look at is, when do episodes of anxiety happen the most? When do you notice the most anxiety? Is it certain times of the day? Is it following certain foods? Is it following certain experiences? Is it within certain relationships? Some individuals have challenges even within their own family with relationship and how others relate to them and deal with them, which can cause them to be extremely anxious. So looking at really what is the root of that. When we see anxiety, what is happening? What is happening at that time? Or what has just preceded that anxiety? And then to look to see, when you kind of get to the bottom of that, and then to begin to see how can then we assist with that? What can help?
Now, you work a lot with ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysis. Can you tell us about your work with that with children?
Well, I personally personally am not a behavioral therapist, but when children come to me, many of them have worked with ABA. The whole idea of, really, if you're talking about early intervention, labeling things is very, very important. Beginning to understand verbal cues, having a schedule, having things in order, and then, progressing from there. When it comes to a program, I work to follow what has been created because I deal then with the holistic aspect of it.
Okay.
And so, I think a lot of times when people hear things like, energy, you were talking about energy medicine, and when people start using the word spiritual, some people go, oh, it's going to be that all airy-fairy, not going to be useful, not going to be helpful. But talk to us a little bit about some things that you've been able to see in your practice with kids, and what do you say to people that have that sort of preconceived notion?
I'm glad that you brought that up because that's certainly something that I face and that all holistic practitioners face. I believe that we talk about the mind, body, spirit, but many times the spirit is kind of left out of the equation. Look how long it took for us to look at the mind and emotional connection. And now the spirit is just as connected to the body and the mind because we are all holistic beings. We are all spiritual beings. It is not a religious affiliation. It's not a specific faith doctrination, which is what we tend to link to a spiritual context. So it's very important to really see our kids and children that are on the spectrum, and adults as well, through their lifespan, are very, very connected to spirit because they really need to develop that aspect of themselves. Because many times in the physical world, they're running into a lot of roadblocks because they have difficulties in communication. They perhaps have problematic behaviors. They have a hard time sometimes socially, many times integrating. In other words, their whole integration into the physical world is many times challenging. So that creates for them a very rich spiritual life. It's like we talk about children having a very imaginary life when they're young. And then they kind of, as they get older, you kind of get away from that. You don't have an imaginary playmate when you're 15. You get away from that. So I think the thing for all of us to remember is that for individuals on the spectrum, they don't get away from that. I mean, yes, they grow, they develop, they change, they progress, but their spirit is still very much as a younger person. And it's important for us as teachers, as practitioners, to address that piece of them, that part of them.
Okay.
What does that mean, though? Like, translate that for me. So, what, because I know that if people don't understand the whole spiritual part of things, then saying addressing that still isn't concrete enough, I think. So, like, give us an example of what that looks like when you're addressing that.
Well, one of the things would be, for instance, if you're looking at energy, to look at their energy field is kind of one place to begin to assess where they are on a spiritual level. So to look energetically where they are, how they are. Is their energy high? Is it low? Is it agitated? Is there a lot of fear? What is it that what I am sensing from them? And parents also see this. This is not something, people that are close to that individual also experience that. So that's very, very important to come in touch with what that is. That begins you on the path then to where their spirit is.
How do you deal with it?
Yeah, so what do you do?
When you find a child who has a high level of anxiety, how do you deal with it? Where do you go from there?
I work to find the cause of it,
right?
The root of it. I work with energy to help them energetically to be calmer. And there are techniques, there are energy techniques, specific techniques that can help to do that.
Okay.
So they'll be in a comfortable position. Many autistic individuals respond very well to music and vibration.
Got it.
I know my son does very, very well to music. He's in a whole different place with music and vibration. So that's something that I assess and use very often in my practice to really, create a calmness and an openness for them to be able to be accepting of really coming to a different energetic place.
Well, and I think a lot of people look at this in a lot of different ways, and this is just one more way of looking at it, because, look, we're all trying to solve when our kids are anxious. It's like, does the child with autism have anxiety? Let's check the box. Because I think most of our kids do. And I think it is important to not just go, oh, well, that's autism, because it isn't, that there is a reason why the anxiety is happening. And in some medical circles, it's just dismissed. It's just dismissed. Well, that is autism, and there's nothing that can be done about that. And we would not do that in any other field in any other way. So addressing it and finding what works for somebody, and addressing their environment, and addressing the sensory components to it, and creating an environment in which they are more comfortable, so that we can at least have periods of time where the anxiety gets to ebb, and maybe it's going to come back, but I think that's all really important. I just wanted to address that, Anne, because I think a lot of people just dismiss this kind of work.
They do.
And
that's correct. And that's why I have a passion for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because many times it is dismissed.
Yeah.
And also a large body of my work surrounds caregivers, teachers, respite workers. Because one of the things that happens when a mother is anxious, or angry, any emotion, this is very felt by very sensitive children. And a lot of my work, I have seen tremendous growth in children and even young adults when their mothers and primary caretakers and educators have had more self-care, have had more support, have been more balanced within their own lives, because having a child on the spectrum can be extremely fatiguing, extremely stressful.
So you work with the family as a whole unit?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And it's very, very important. Sometimes in the beginning I only work with the mother, and then that work then gradually to the child, and we work it together, because it is very much a unit.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate, because as you're singing our song, we agree that the caregivers have to be taken care of, or the whole thing falls apart. And and we're very much proponents as parents of looking at all individuals as whole individuals, and have seen and been discriminated against, having our children not being looked at as a diagnosis instead of a whole human being that has an ecosystem and thoughts and feelings that they would like to express. So we get it. But Anne, if people want to know more about your practice, where should they go?
SpectrumSpiritualWellness.com, or they can email me at Ann@SpectrumSpirit.com.
Okay, SpectrumSpiritualWellness.com. And what was the last one, the email?
My email is Ann@SpectrumSpirit.com.
Okay,
That's
wonderful. Anne, thank you so much for being with us.
Very welcome. I was very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. You guys too. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.